this morning I am going to talk about the pros and cons of having a wood stove. Now first, before I start talking about that, if you watch all my other videos or shorts, you will notice that I don't really look like this. I'm not wearing nice, pretty clothes. Well, this morning, my 6-year-old daughter, Abigail, really wanted us to match. So she's wearing stretch pants and a dress and a necklace. And so she gave me this necklace and dress and stretch pants. So that's why I'm looking like this today. So and socks, yes, and socks. And so that's why I look a little bit fancy for doing wood stove work today. But anyways, that's, when you have little girls, you want to make them happy. And do wood, and rings too, yes, and my ring. Okay, so you want to make your kids happy, so, and it's fun. So, alright, so back to the wood stove now. So, I'm going to be building our fire while I'm talking about the wood stove, pros and cons. So, some people would definitely say that, a con of a wood stove is all the big mess that we have. So, you have to sweep it up, you have the ashes, you have to empty the ashes, as they get filled up. So as you can see right now, so this, I haven't filled it up I cleaned it out, I think it was like Wednesday, and today is Saturday. So I do, about, when it gets filled up, you have to empty it out. But, the way I empty it out is different than other people. And my husband particularly does it totally different than me, and it drives him nuts the way I do it, and the way he does it drives me nuts. But I'm doing it the way I do it because then I like to build a fire this way. And the way I do it is I don't take all the ashes out, because I'm a firm believer that if you take all the ashes out, it is hard to build your next fire. I like to have a little layer of ashes because I think it just helps build the next fire. So my husband says that's not true, but for me it is. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to take them all out. So like when you're emptying this, it could get messy, right? The ashes fall down, it's dusty, our house is tons more dusty than it is in the summer because of all the ashes and, in the air and things like that. So that would be a con, I guess. Sweeping it, this gets dusty, so you have to wipe that out. The air in our house gets dry, so we have to put our water on top of the stove. And in each of our rooms, we have humidifiers as well for nighttime. And sometimes I'll even bring the humidifiers in here, the extra humidifiers, and plug them in to make it to where, the air is not so dry. So that's one of the things. And then also, you have to bring the wood in, of course, every day, multiple times a day. Even if it's cold outside or snowing or raining or whatnot, you still have to bring that wood in order to get it warm in here. So, but but that's not really, that's, some people is a con. Not to me. I don't mind it. And actually, my husband uses a wood bag. He says it's easier that way. I just like to get a thing of wood. I'm kind of different, so we do it differently, but everybody does things differently. So, so everybody does things differently. So now another thing that some people might think is a con, but for me it's not a con because I like it. I think it's good to be outside. I love to be outside. My family likes to be outside. So, is cutting. You have to cut the wood, split the wood, and stack the wood. Now, our family does it as a family thing. Even our 4-year-old son helps stack wood. And in a video in a past, we have a video of him stacking the wood. He loves that. So it's really good exercise. It's good to be out in the fresh air and to do it as a family. So, now I'm going to just keep taking out some of these ashes. Now, you have to be careful too, though, because, see, some of these are hot ashes. So, you have to be very careful not to let the hot ashes get on your carpet because it could start a fire. So, you have to be very careful when you are emptying ashes because they are hot and you don't want to burn yourself. Now, of course, some people would wear gloves and all this stuff, but, it's not that bad. So, I don't really need to wear gloves. If you want to wear gloves, if you're trying to do this, though, go ahead and wear gloves. But make sure that they won't get burned up and everything. So, and then, okay, so we talked about, so that one that could be like a con, but not for us, or not for me, because I like to do all the wood stuff. And we've done this for 20 years. My husband and I we've had a wood stove ever since we've been together. And so I've been making fires for 20 years. So I do it, my way. Some people might build fires other ways, but I'm really specific on the way I like to build my fire. So I don't like to take all the ashes out, and then here in a minute I'll show you how I build my fire too. That's kind of different than what I use. And then also another, so we have the cons would be a lot of mess, ashes, pieces of wood that you have to sweep, all the dust, the drier air. Because even though furnaces get your air dry, but wood stoves do that, get the air even more dry. So, and then now the thing that for me is a con, I'm not a con, but it's a pro, but could be a con for other people, would be all the work that is involved in wood stoves instead of just flipping on the switch for the furnace. But like I said, for me, it is not a con, it is a pro. And then also now another pro would be for sure that the warmth that a wood stove gives you. I personally think that wood stoves give the best heat because when I'm outside all the time, every day, I have to go outside and take care of the animals. And so in the cold weather, I go out there. And it's not that I don't like to. I love to go out there and take care of the animals. And when you're a farmer, you have to, right? I mean, you can't just say it's too cold, I'm not going to go feed my animals or go take care of my animals and leave them out to themselves. That would be terrible, right? So, I mean, as a farmer, I'm choosing that I want this, right? This is what I like to do. I do like it. So, but because I have to go out there, I'm going to be cold. It's going to be cold. I'm going to work. So I love to come in the house or the furnace shed with our other wood stove, and you just like that heat. When your skin, there's times where, your skin hurts, it's so cold. So you come by the wood stove and you feel that heat, and it will just, warm you up so much better. And it's just such a great feeling, comforting, warming. It's a great feeling. And I would not choose it any different. Always, wherever we have lived, we have always brought our wood stove and put it everywhere we've lived. So that's how much I love our wood stove, for sure. Now another thing that you have to do with wood stoves is, of course, clean the chimney. So that's not like a humongous big deal, of course, because it's really just like at the beginning of the season, we'll clean it. And then sometimes throughout the season you might have to, but instead of having to on the top of the chimney, and I have a video of me cleaning it at the beginning of the season, but in the inside, sometimes what people do, and sometimes we do this, is you use creosote remover. So it's just like this black stuff, kind of grayish stuff, and you just sprinkle this on top of the fire, and then it cleans up the chimney pipe. Now, this is what most people probably would do, and sometimes we do it, but what I like to do is on our little burn thing, or on our temperature gauge up here, okay, so you have the first part, it tells you if your fire is from here to here, this is going to be creating creosote inside your pipe because it's not very hot, right? So it's going to be building that creosote, which eventually could block your pipe if you didn't clean it out, which could be dangerous, but that's why you want to keep it clean. Now this white part is the burn zone, it says. So that's where it's not, it's burning really good, not going to build that creosote. But then over here, when it's very hot, normally you do not want your stove to be that hot because it could start a fire inside your pipe, of course. So you don't normally want it. But because I've been building fires for as long as I've been building them, you come up with tricks as you do things. So my thing that I like to do, how I like to clean my stovepipes, is not necessarily with the creosote remover. I like to let it get hot, over hot, right? So I like it to get here, not all, for hours, but, probably half an hour, right? A half an hour of good hot heat to burn all that creosote, and that will burn it and that will clean it. So that's simple. To me, that's more simple. I don't really like to do like extra things. It's not that I'm lazy. I just don't like to do extra things. So to me, that creosote remover is an extra thing I had to think about, right? So I would rather just let the fire get hot naturally. To me, that's more natural. Clean it out and then turn it down. Because what you can do, you know, so I leave it open, let the fire get hot. Once it's there, half an hour, then I'll start turning it down, and then it goes back to normal. And then I know that it's cleaned out. So it's pretty simple. So now, so see, right here, I have pretty much, now when I clean this out really quickly, like I said, I don't like to take all the ashes out. So I like to leave if there are hot coals in there, those are the ones that I like to leave. And I spread them out. I'm going to take a little bit more back here. But then I like to spread out the hot coals that I've left in there. Then that helps build the next fire that I'll build, right? So I'll just do a little bit more. Because see, right now it's still like negative 20 something degrees outside is what the wind chill. So it's still pretty cold here. Now in a couple of days it's going to warm up to like in the 20s and 30s, which is going to feel like a heat wave for us, which is funny if you think about that, right? But it is going to feel so nice. So, okay, so I think that looks pretty good. So we're just going to spread these hot coals around like this. Okay, now what we do with the ashes is that I take them outside, and actually I'm going to just leave this here for a minute. I take the ashes outside and I dump them in the garden, in our garden, and then they, you know, it helps fertilize the garden, the ashes do. So that's where we dump them out. So let me go put this outside so it's not smoking in here, and I'll be right back. So I'm back now. I put the ashes outside in the snow, or I didn't dump them in the snow, but I put the bucket in the snow. Then I'll take them out to the garden and dump them in the garden later on, here in a little bit. But so now I'm going to I'm going to put this up in the fire. Now because we have all those nice hot coals in there, like you can see, I'm not going to have to use everything I normally do use. But right now, normally, I'm just going to show you. I just took this out. If you didn't see my other video, if I didn't show this on my other video. Sometimes, so my favorite thing, hold on, let me start it like this. My favorite thing to use to start a fire, if you don't have hot ashes, is feed bags. So we get our pig food mix at the feed mill. And they normally, before we used to have, or we didn't have, a gravity bin wagon where they dump the feed in it, you know. So we didn't. And so we used to have them bag the feed, and this is what they would bag it in. So this is so wonderful for starting fires. Better than newspaper. Wonderful, right? And then you reuse them, right? So it's kind of like recycling them. So I love these. But now we bought a gravity bed wagon in the summer. So now they put the pig food in there. There's no bags, which in turn is kind of good, less wasteful. But then we don't have these bags. So once in a while, though, we do buy like corn or something at the feed store. So we'll get a couple bags. So we do have this right now because we had bought corn for the cows and goats when it was so negative this past week. They needed that extra. Well, you know, we like to give it to them. So we got a couple of these bags. So now I'm just gonna have to use this one today instead of everything else. But if I don't have these bags, then we'll have to buy fire starters sometimes. And these work well, all right too. They're just like a little, I guess it's like a little piece of wood all together. And I mean, it is helpful. Or so this is probably my least favorite way to start a fire is fire starters. My second best way to do a fire is just newspaper. So every time I go to town, we stop by Fairway, which is our little grocery store, and they have newspapers. First of all, I love to look at the newspaper and the farm section and the animal section, right? What are they selling? Or if we're selling stuff, we put stuff in our paper too, and you know, it sells perfectly. So, love to look at the paper. But my second best thing is to use it to build fires. So for 20 years, we get the newspaper, we look at it, me and my husband look at it, and then we use it for the fire. But every time I go to the Fairway, I get a handful. You know, like people probably think I'm weird. Why does this girl need all this paper? But I like to take it. They have tons of it. But, you know, I like to take it because I like to stock up on newspaper. And then all year long, we get newspaper in the mail every week too, right? So I save that, you know, even in the summertime, I go to the Fairway and I get a handful of paper because I have bags and bags and bags of newspapers ready for winter, right? So this is a great idea. So, but today I'm not going to need to use this. So this right here next to our wood stove is we have a bookcase, right? So this bookcase is empty right now because we are in the middle of taking it out because my husband is going to finish drywalling the wall and we're going to he's going to build me a bookcase on the wall, you know, like a big one. So we're in the middle of doing that. So that's why this is empty. But it's nice because this will still be, you know, there'll still be shelves here. So I can still put all of our wood stove stuff up there. It's out of the reach of the kids, so the kids can't reach it. But it's organized. It's right by the wood stove. That's where we put it. So let's build the fire. And then after we build the fire, I'll sweep and I'll clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to, okay, so I'm going to build the fire. And now another really good pro though of the wood stove is how much money it saves. So because in the winter, we really just use our wood stove, right? Except for, give me 1 second while I build this fire. Okay, so now another thing, really quick before I talk about the saving money, I just thought about something with the wood. So another key thing to building a fire and when you have a wood stove is that you really need dry wood. So you really need to cut your wood the year before, so cut it and split it, so then it has time to dry. It's gonna build a fire a lot easier than heavier wet wood. Even if your tree is dead and you cut it down and you're like, okay, this will be fine for this year because it's dead, right? Not the case. Unless it was cut and split, it will not dry properly for your fire. So you could build a fire with wood that isn't totally dry yet, but it's just going to be a little bit more complicated. So, okay, so also a thing with wet wood is that, so like I just said, it can build a fire. It's just going to take a lot of this extra stuff, you know, like fire starters, paper, bags, you know, whatever you have. So it's not going to catch on fire very well, right? Another thing is wet wood is what creates all that creosote. Like I was just talking a little bit ago, using the creosote remover or getting your fire really hot to clean out those pipes. If you have dry wood, it's not going to create the creosote. So it's going to be a lot cleaner fire as well for the stove. So that's why you want to make sure, if you can, cut and split your wood the prior year, so then you'll have it ready too. So, okay, let me see. I'm not even probably going to need the matches today. I think, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut the doors. And right here on this stove, our openings are in the front. And you just open these up. And then our damper is open. So then the air goes up. And so, okay, so then when it gets too hot though, I turn these down a little bit, you know. And now at nighttime, I'll fill up. So this is another kind of a con, but not necessarily, depends on the weather outside, is that at nighttime before I go to bed, make sure I fill this up with wood. And then I turn it down. Because if you don't turn it down, it's going to burn it up and then it'll get no ashes in the morning. But if you turn it down, put the wood in it, turn it down, by the morning there'll still be hot ashes in it. Now it's going to be kind of chilly in the house. So you may, depending on the weather outside, sometimes I'll turn on the furnace to get it a little bit warmer while the fire's going until it gets warm. But on your normal winter that's not negative weather, you don't need to turn on the furnace. I won't have to turn on the furnace. I'll just go get more wood, put it in here, and then there will already be hot coals in it. So that's nice. So now, but if you like your house warm right when you wake up, then probably you're not gonna like the wood stove that much because it's going to be a little chilly in the morning. But now, in the negative weather in Iowa, we do have to still use our furnace because a wood stove, heat rises, so it's not going to heat the pipes underneath the house. We have had problems before where the pipes have frozen, a little bit. We actually did when our first daughter was born. Our pipes burst in the utility room, so that was a humongous mess. But that's a whole nother story. So right now, what we have figured out, what we have to do is in the negative weather, we have to turn the furnace on at nighttime, especially at nighttime, because the fire, it's not going to be going, it's, until you put more wood in it. So as long as we put the wood fire on, put the furnace on, the pipes are good and they don't freeze. And we leave the dripping a little bit. We do start to leave our water dripping in the bathroom a little bit, so then the hot water doesn't freeze. But then in normal, 20s, 30s, of course, even teens, you don't have to do that. We don't have to do that for the furnace because it's going to be okay. But it's just when you get to 0 or negative that we have to use both the wood stove and the furnace. So right now is one of those times, because like I said, it's like negative 20 something degrees outside for the wind chill. So, but pretty soon we'll just be using the wood stove again. So let me think now. Okay, so we talked about the pros and cons. There's one more pro, is that about the money. Oh yeah, I'll go back to that because I started on that. So it saves a lot of money having a wood stove. Now you do have a lot more work, but it saves you money. So we have a 1,000-gallon propane tank. We fill it up every summer. That is when propane is the cheapest, is in the summer. So we are so blessed to be able to fill that up in the summer, and then it lasts us a whole year because we have our wood stove. Now, if we did not have our wood stove and we had to use that propane for heat on top of, the water and the stove, the cooking stove, who would even know? How much it would cost, or how many times we'd have to fill it up. I don't even know. We've never done that. So it would be expensive, because I remember a couple years ago, propane was $5 a gallon. So imagine that. That tank is 1,000 gallons. So think about having to fill that up maybe more than once a year. That would be nuts. We couldn't afford it. So that's why the wood stove is a lifesaver. Literally a lifesaver. Right? So now I'm going to clean. Now what I do too is I'm going to clean up. Well, first let's put the water. Actually, let's first wipe it. So sometimes I'll wipe it when it gets really dusty on the top. So I just take a wet washcloth before it gets too hot. It's still not too hot. So I just wipe it off. Just quickly. Kind of like dusting the wood stove. But you want to do this before it's too hot, of course, or you'll burn yourself. And I dust the top of the blower. So this thing blows the heat, of course, when it gets hot enough. So then it goes into the other parts of the house. Okay, so that's dusted or wiped off. And now I'm going to put water in our water thing right here. And I really like to put a little bit of cinnamon in it too on top of the water, because it makes your house smell so wonderful. So then put the lid on that like that. And then we might have to sweep a little bit of the wood up here. And also, I'm going to tell you one more pro I just thought about while I'm sweeping this, is that in my house, it stays 80 to 85 degrees, even in the coldest of the weather. 80 to 85 degrees in the winter is what I like to keep my house at. Sometimes it can get hotter than that if I let the stove get hot, then it can even get into 90. And sometimes in the winter, it gets so hot in the house, we have to open the windows, which is crazy if you think about that. But also, that just brought me another pro in my mind when I said that, is that you can have fresh air in your house in the winter by opening your windows and doors, but yet you don't get cold because your house is so warm from the wood stove. Because, everybody always says it gets stuffy in your house in the winter because you have to keep the windows shut, You want fresh air in your house. So every once in a while, we'll get the stove really warm, get the house like about 90. Open the windows, Samuel. Open the windows, both sides, get a nice cross breeze, let lots of fresh air in, clean out our house, all the air out, and everything. So that's wonderful too. That's one of my favorite things about the wood stove too, is I like to be able to have fresh air even in the winter. So that's pretty great. So we're just gonna sweep this up. This is just, a quick thing. Like I said, on Wednesday I did this. So I don't do this every day. You could if you wanted it to be perfect, but I don't. A little bit of stuff doesn't bother me. So But, you know, every couple days, just another little thing to just sweep up and stuff. But, okay, so that is my pros and cons of wood stoves. If you agree or if you have your own pros and cons, leave them in our comments. We would love to read about them. And like my videos and subscribe to my channel, please. We would feel so blessed if you did. And thank you for our subscribers for watching my videos. Thanks and have a great day.